Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about standing out and being remembered. Yes, that is the topic of our focus today. That is what we are thinking about. And I have luckily here my special guest, Paige, who's going to help us think about this in a whole new way. So, with that being said, let's just get started. So, Paige, when you hear the words standing out, what does that make you think about? Let's break it down.
So I'm a marketing person. So for me, when you stand out, it means you're a brand that's going to get remembered, that people think about you when they need your help. And
Mm,
standing out is the opposite of being invisible. And I think in this world today, with all the messages and all the advertising and all the noise out there, that it's really important to not be invisible. So standing out is kind of everything. If you want to, whatever category you're in, whatever business you have, it's all about kind of being known and remembered and thought of in a really positive way.
yes. Oh, I love that. Exactly. And brings us into being remembered. So let's really break that one down. When you hear the words being remembered, what does that make you think about?
So that's more like emotionally connecting, owning real estate in somebody's brain so that if your product or service can help them solve a problem, that they think of you first.
Mm,
And, a brand is a promise and it's a way to emotionally connect with your audience. So for me, in this world of just kind of overstimulation and overkill,
yeah.
there's so much abundance out there. And
Yeah.
so anything that can streamline and focus your thinking and solve your problems, that's kind of the name of the game. That's how you build a sustainable business today.
That's true. And that emotional factor is so real. And I'm glad you brought that up. And it's like real it is. It's like real estate in our mind. Like how many times does a random song from a commercial years ago of your childhood do you still play? No, like it could just pop up in your head, no problem. You know what I mean? But you've never used their services, but their services are always in your mind. And that is something really that we all need to think about because that can really take a toll in our lives. Like what are we thinking about? What has free real estate and how do we stand out? How do we step into that emotional real estate with somebody else so they can always remember you? So, how do we do this, Paige?
So, if you don't define your brand, other people, your competitors, the market is going to define you instead. So, I think one of the funny things that I hear a lot from people, either current clients or prospective clients, is I'm not famous. I'm not Beyonce. I'm not Taylor Swift or Serena Williams. Like, I'm not really a brand. I just do, I'm an accountant. I'm a lawyer. I own a small business. I work in a big company. I'm not really a brand. And I don't think that's true today. I kind of think everybody's a brand today
Yeah.
because before you meet with someone for lunch, for coffee, for a meeting, before they invite you to be on their podcast, what do? They check you out online, they Google you, they go to your website, they go to your LinkedIn and say, who is this person? Is it worth my while to return the phone call, to answer the email, to meet them at an event? Like, is this someone that I need to know?
Yeah.
And, we're all walking around with these phones in our pocket with all these platforms where you might pop up. So if you don't think of yourself as a brand, it's a missed opportunity today. I mean, famous people are obviously brands, but I don't think you have to be famous to be a brand. I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think today, you know, you you have to manage your brand. I think it's important, as I said, if you don't take the lead, other people will I make an identity that you may or may not want, or it may not resonate with you. So think
Exactly.
about what you stand for, what you want to be known for, and how do you figure that out? Well, the process for doing it for people is not dissimilar than the way you do it for products or services.
Yeah.
You can do some market research. It doesn't have to be statistically significant, but you can talk to people who know you personally, professionally, classmates, neighbors, friends, and you can ask them, when you think of me, what comes to mind? What are the 3 or 4 words that pop into your head? And
Yeah.
what's interesting about that is you can see how people know you, whether it's personal, whether it's professional. Do themes emerge? Do the same type of words pop up? Or if people know you from childhood, do they think of you as a very different person than you are as an adult? Or have you had certain things that have just stuck with you throughout your life? So, if people if you think of yourself one way, let's say you think you have a great sense of humor, you're really funny, and what you hear back from people is very buttoned up, very serious, but very snarky, kind of has like a mean streak almost with their humor.
Yeah.
That's a disconnect. Like you don't necessarily sync up with how you're being perceived. And so it's important to know,
Absolutely.
are the traits that you think you have, are they consistent and are they perceived in a positive light? So that's just like a real quick reality check. But
Yeah.
if you are seeing themes emerge and it syncs up with how you think of yourself, that's a really good sign. But you need to be consistent
Yeah.
across platforms and the way, if you are professional, you're a small business owner, and you think of yourself in this very kind of more professional light, um, you can't show up looking sloppy at things just because it's not work. If people run into you on the soccer field at a kid's soccer game, at the grocery store, running errands, at Starbucks, grabbing coffee, and every time they see you, you're kind of dressed like a homeless person. That's not consistent with the image that you think you're portraying. Doesn't mean you need to be in a pinstripe suit all the time, but it does mean that you need to be more kind of what do they call it in Europe? Smart casual, where you're a little more buttoned up in a maybe in a sporty way or maybe in a more tailored way. But you don't want to be in ratty sweatpants and flip-flops. That just isn't part of the image you think you're showing. And if you
Yeah.
think you're very kind of like frugal or very responsible with money, and people see you wearing all kinds of flashy jewelry, driving a really expensive car. Again, that's a big disconnect. So you really do need to connect the dots, do a reality check, and make sure that all the touch points out there tie together to tell a consistent story.
Exactly. I really love that because, man, do people have a disconnect out in this world? When they say walk it like you talk it, people do not talk it and walk it the same way. They're one way's going this way and the other one's going the other way. Like, goodness, goodness, straighten yourself up. So, yes, I love how you said being consistent and it's connecting with your morals. Really, like, are your morals grounded? You know what I mean? And I think that's funny when you say, oh, go ask people, see what they have to say, because if you are not healed, you are not going to be able to receive what's being said about you and you'll be offended real quick. Because if you have that disconnect, you're going to be in defense mode. Like, how can you say that's how I am? That's not how I am. Like, okay, well, you're displaying everything that I'm saying, but sure, you know what I mean? So it's like, yes, you have to have that connection. And another way that someone told me was if you ask somebody, for instance, what type of animal do you think people see you as? You know what I mean? Like that. You know what I mean? Or like, what type of animal do you see yourself as? You know, those type of questions, when you ask somebody and you tell them the response, you get that surprising response like, oh, well, I think people see me as a rabbit, or think people see me as a lion, an eagle, whatever. You know what I mean? A unicorn,
Right.
whatever you want to call yourself. You know what I mean? You could be a walrus for all I care. You know, so all I'm saying is
Exactly.
that having that connection and having that consistency, being in that right state of mind, knowing that how you show up, it really is everything. You know what I mean? First impressions is a real thing and it's been lost. And especially after COVID, everybody was like, you know what, fuck it. I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? I don't care anymore because it's about life right now. But it's like, okay, let's come back to enjoying life and dressing up for anything because life can be gone at any given moment. So wouldn't you want to know that you put on your clean underwear on and you took a shower, brushed your teeth, you know what I mean? You went out smelling good and actually wore the clothes that were like hanging in the and you know what I mean? That's not in this pile of clean clothes that you don't even know anymore. You know what
No,
I'm
but
saying? Like,
you brought up a good point. When COVID started and we were all on Zoom for work and fun constantly, and people were doing Zoom calls in their bedroom or,
yeah,
in their apartments or homes. When you saw that people didn't make their bed or they had a really messy house, but at work you remember them, being very buttoned up, that's kind of a disconnect. Like that is not the image I had. They've got a pajama top on. They didn't even kind of get dressed for the business call. They're
right?
sitting, on their bed that hasn't been made. That you can't unsee that. Like you said, you get one chance to make a great first impression. And once you do that, you can't go back. And
Yeah,
so, it's that way with the website too. If your storefront is your website. And if people go and they don't have a good experience, it's going to be harder to get them to come back. It's going to take a lot more time and a lot more money. So you want to have that great first impression. Another thing that happens a lot when either my clients or prospects reach out to me is they say, I just don't understand it. I have this amazing company. It's a great product or a great service. Everybody tells me they love it, but our business is terrible. We haven't had any sales, and I don't understand why people tell me they like it, but they're not buying it.
yeah,
My first question is, who's telling you they like it? Did you do market research? Who did you ask? And if they ask their brother, their friend, their neighbor, their mother, the problem with that is unless that's your target audience, it doesn't matter what those people think. You need to talk to real customers who vote with their checkbooks and their purchase orders and their wallets.
yeah,
And, you can't ask people that know you and love you because they don't want to tell you the baby's ugly. They're going to say, oh, it's great. You have such a great idea. It's such an amazing business, but they're not the people buying. You have to
mhm,
really know who your core audience is. And when you identify who your primary target is, you have to also look around and see, is there a secondary market, a tertiary market? Because maybe there's someone in finance, maybe there's someone in procurement that's also involved in the decision making that's not the person that actually needs the product. So you need to have the right messages for the right audience so that the manager has all the information they need, but maybe they have to sell the legal department, the financial group. And so it's really important to have the right words and pictures for every audience you're talking to.
absolutely.
And the other thing about trying to stand out and be remembered, customers can't remember 10 things. It's impossible. They remember one, two, maybe at most three things.
Yeah,
So really boil it down to the essence of what makes your product or service unique, special, and different. What is it about you that's really compelling that benefits them? And it really is about how it looks from their perspective. One of the mistakes I see is that people want to talk about all their features, all the shiny objects. Nobody cares about that. They care about what benefits them. How are you going to
Yeah.
make my life easier, more
Mhm.
convenient? How are you going to save me time? How are you going to save me money? So
Exactly.
talk to them about what they need, not about what you've got, because it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah, you have to be very well-rounded when it comes to standing out and being remembered because you got to know when and where you're trying to be remembered and why you're trying to be remembered. You can't get caught up in somebody else's ways of being remembered because you don't know their motives. You know what I mean? You don't know their intentions. You don't know what they're
Exactly.
going after. You know what I mean? You don't know what their aim is. You don't know. You're just seeing the outside and people get so caught up with seeing the outside like you were talking about earlier how we get caught up with social media. We got these devices in our hands, scrolling, 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 and getting caught up with the images that people are selling, but not realizing what's going on inside. What's if it that disconnect that you were referring to earlier. So it's like we need to really come back and remember what is our motive because when you wake up remembering what's your motive, what's your objective, where's your intentions, all of those great points, asking the hard questions, you know what I mean? Asking the hard questions, ladies and gentlemen. When we do this, then we really can show up authentically. And I think that's what really wins people's heart because no matter what you're selling, it could be a book, it could be a phone, it could be clothes, it could be a filter for something, whatever you want to put it. You know what I mean? It could be literally anything, even yourself. And it's like, does it really connect? You know what I mean? Can I really see through you? Because people can see through you and they know, that person's fake. That person does not, that doesn't add up. I've seen her last time. She didn't look like that. She didn't act like that. You know what I mean? So it's just like, that's what people remember is the disconnect. And if people do not remember the authenticity, they're going to remember the disconnect. And it's like, it makes you wonder, like, how disconnected are you? But then we have to also remember that perception is very subjective. And because perception is very subjective, you cannot tie yourself to somebody who's already disconnected within themselves and their main objective is to disconnect everybody else around them because there are people like that. You got to stay away from the gremlins because man, do they like to burn everybody up alive. So what is your opinion on being on that subjectiveness that people also have to recognize?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you do a good job of controlling your narrative and planting the seeds, you have to tell stories that resonate with your audience because people do not remember the facts and figures and data. You can throw all the gobbledygook out there and people's eyes glaze over. They don't even know how to process it. But if you share the stories that are authentic to you, like you said, that's what people remember. That's what resonates with them and connects with them on an emotional level so that they remember that story. They can repeat the story. They can become a champion and advocate and tell other people when they have a problem that your product or service can help them solve. They can say, "Oh my God, I met this amazing woman. Let me tell you what's going on with her." And they recount the stories and they remember the two bullet points that really resonated. That's when you're in the zone. That's when, people like flock to your website or really, look for you online. And that's what helps them connect to the head and the heart. But they have to latch on to something um, because otherwise it's just like they get buried in data that is overwhelming. And I think the other thing we haven't touched on yet is artificial intelligence, which
Oh,
everyone, every day it's like there's some new tool or technology. And I just would encourage the listeners, don't get overwhelmed with the AI. AI has a lot of great, there are a lot of attractive qualities. It can help you brainstorm. It can help you kind of get out of a rut. It can, give you lots and lots of ideas,
yeah.
but it cannot compete with a human who's got, like, again, it's about the emotion. It's about the stories, the good, the bad, the ugly, the war stories, the ups and downs, the roller coaster that small businesses are on every day. And I think you don't want artificial intelligence to write the copy on your website or to put together a brochure for you because it ends up being kind of robotic and generic. And,
Mhm.
a robot doesn't have all those personal ups and downs. And that's what people connect to. As you said, it's the vulnerabilities, it's the way that you can share, like this really worked or this was a disaster, and here's what I learned from it.
Yeah.
Robots can't do that. AI can't do that. But if you can connect with people authentically with stories that resonate with them, that touch them emotionally, that really pull at their heart, that's a way to get remembered. But if you're just saying the same blah, blah, blah with the same jargon and all the buzzwords that are out on the internet, no one's going to remember you versus your competition.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up because goodness gracious, people are really extreme when it comes to AI. You know what I mean? They're either to the extreme, yes, it does everything. I want it for everything. Yay. And then the other one's like, no, no, I don't want it for nothing. Ah, no, it's a taboo. Oh, no, I don't want to even look at it. Don't even, no. And then it's like, no, balance, ladies and gentlemen. There's balance when it comes to AI because when you use it to your advantage, then yes, it can help you in so many ways. Like you were said, gives you that correctness, give you that, oh wait, that's what I was missing. I knew I was missing this in this segment, but now it's complete. Okay. But now you have to bring back your emotions because if you ever use Grammarly or ever use any editing website, you know that they always take out that emotional connection. They always take that out. And it's like you said earlier, that's what connects us as humans. Humans are so unique as we are because we have this emotional capability that nothing can ever comprehend. I mean, come on, we see it in sci-fi movies all the time. You know what I mean? They're always ready to destroy us because we are so terrible human beings destroying each other. Yet they save humanity because we are so pure at heart as well and we have so much compassion and love and empathy that cannot separate us but only unite us, and when we keep that in our product and who we are as a human being, as an individual, then you can show up and truly be remembered because then you are tapping into your authentic self because it becomes back to like we were talking about earlier, the vulnerability. Oh my goodness, Paige, I feel like we can continue on talking about this and it's sad because the time is catching up to us, so I have to ask you to just start wrapping up the show. What can be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
So really think about what makes you unique, special, and different because people buy products and services from people that they know, like, and trust. So really put yourself out there in a way that's uniquely you. Find your lane. What's the Oscar Wilde quote? Be yourself, everyone else is already taken. You don't want to be a copycat. You want to be the original.
Mm.
And don't worry what other people are doing. Stick to your strengths, find your lane, and be the best you can be. And that's what's going to attract the people that need your product or service. Um, it's hard, I think, not to get distracted by all the shiny objects and all the noise out there. But I
Mm.
think if you are confident and you know what you do best and how you can really help people, and you share your strengths and your stories, that's what's going to resonate with your audience. And if you're Coca-Cola, you need 1 million people to buy your product. But if you're a small business or a professional service firm, if you had 10 great clients every year, for small business, that might be enough to have a very good practice.
Mm.
So, figure out what you do best and do it better than anybody else.
I love that. Thank you so much for that, Page, because that is real. We have to remember, like, not to have blinders, but also to have blinders. It's like it's that balance, ladies and
Exactly.
gentlemen. We have to remember this balance. in this crazy world that pulls us in every direction because they're always telling us not to compare, but we kind of have to see, okay, what other people are doing so I don't fail like they do. But then I don't compare too much because I still have to be original, still have to be emotionally intact with who I am. You know what I mean? And authentic. But it's nice to like look and oh, if that works, let me copy that real quick because it's a good, you know what I mean, comment thing to so it's like you have to be in that knowing of what's good and what's bad, but knowing in your heart how to stay true. So, yes, thank you so much for those words of wisdom because that is truly something for us all to really think about. Like, how am I being authentic? How am I staying true for who I am? Or what is my image? Is it really complying with how I see myself? Or am I how I see myself, not how the world sees me? You know what I mean? Because that is something that we all really need to ask, you know? Asking the hard questions, ladies and gentlemen. That is what we're doing here. So, with that being said, if you guys want to check out Paige and know all of the goodness that she has to offer the world, because how could you not with this conversation, right? Could you not please go check her out? I have her lovely photo on my website, along with her website, so that you can have access to all the great things that she has to offer the world. And obviously, so that you can continue on thinking. So, with that being said, bye.